Alright guys, it might be hard to believe, my VN is actually not perfect. I know. So here I've got a list of things that I want to do. I want to stain the steering wheel because there's a little bit of yellowing in it. I need to sort out the tail shaft bolts. It's missing half of them. I'll go into that in a second. I want to sort out the door rubber. The radio doesn't work. The cluster doesn't work. The handbrake doesn't work. There's some panel gaps. Needs a vacuum. The rear trim up here is no good. And the trim under the steering wheel, that's no good either. You'll also notice there's a little orange rescue here. I adopted this guy about a week ago and he's my shadow at the moment. I don't mind him walking on the car because he weighs nothing. He doesn't have his nails out. And more importantly, he's very, very cute and very cuddly. So his name is Scotty. And the VN needs a wash. Now, I'm not going to be able to do all of that in this video, of course. All right, boys, let's fix by far one of the most common problems with VN VPs, the rear interior trim. Back in the day when these were worth peanuts, I actually went to my local Holden Wreckers and I sold them out of these trims because I knew that they were going to break, and I have gone through all 5 that I bought. The one actually in the car right now is a reproduction one off eBay, and while the colour and everything is actually pretty bang on, the clips aren't big enough. So now because they're plastic, I can't really widen the clips, and I've got Venetians, there's a lot going on. So hopefully all I'm going to do is just put a dab of silicone in there just to hold it up, and let's see if that works. Years ago when I was putting in these Venetians, one of the issues that I always had with them is I'd be driving along and crash, they would fall down. So what I actually got a mate to do was make these little steel brackets. They're just a square piece of steel with a hole in it, and it's just screwed to the roof. And they're just these little screws that are holding them in. They're not very heavy, and my Venetians don't rattle. It's fantastic. So while we're going this far, I thought we'd just give them a tighten. They're pretty good anyway, but can't hurt. And as you can see, the trim has failed. It's got these 5 little clips that actually go into the body, and they have obviously failed. So let's pull it down. So the card is actually a little bit worse than I thought. So what I'm going to do is put some silicone up against the card and grab some timber or something, just a little offcut, and just have that pushed up overnight so the silicone can dry. All right, now that that's silicone, what I'm going to do is wedge one of these timbers against my little fold down thing here and up against the headlight. Now this is just to get the silicone to stick before I put the trim on, just to put a bit less stress on the trim. I think this is actually going to work. Okay, it's now the next day. Hopefully the silicone has gone off so we can pull this down. There we go. This is just taking some of that pressure away from that trim. It might not be obvious on camera, but this is just looking a lot nicer as well in here. So, okay, oh, for fuck's sake. Okay, so we're not going to go nuts here because I might one day want to take this trim down. So I'm just going to do a handful of little blobs. I'm going to leave that to dry for a bit. All right, it is the next day. Again, hopefully this silicone is dry. I'll just knock this out. Oh, look at that. That is solid as anything. Now, I hope I don't ever have to pull it down, but that is fantastic, and it looks a whole lot better too. I do wish that I could have got an original one, but they're so hard to find now, so this one's just going to have to do. Okay, one of the first things that we're going to attack is that trim underneath the steering wheel. What's actually happened is I've broken the little interior clip. The clips that trim to the body, and it's just moving around while I'm driving. It's just not great. So let's sort that out first. Oh, perfect. I hope. Look at that. Much better. I ended up using something like this, sort of like a little Christmas tree clip. Perfect. That's really good. Not too tight, but yeah, very good. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to try and do is sort out this little gap here. So unfortunately what I'm going to have to do is my least favorite thing is pull this manual surround up and adjust those screws to try and close this gap. Unfortunately I didn't film this, but I did have a vacuum up in here as well. Got to make sure I treat these products like gold. It's very hard to find one without a chipped edge. Oh, my absolute least favorite thing is pulling these off, just because they're getting quite rare. Now I'm the first one to admit I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing here. So what I'm going to do is try and almost pull it up, sort of get it where I want it, lift it a little bit, and hopefully tighten the screw. And I don't think that's made any difference, so I might just have to give it a quick Google. It's clear that I'm missing the adjusting tubes. Now, I don't know where they've gone or why that's happened. So I've just got my little kit here from my van. If you guys don't know, I'm a chippy, and this is my little kit for hanging TVs. These are those little plastic things that go on the back. So hopefully that is enough to substitute this little thing. So I'll just pull the screw out. Okay, on second thought, I don't think that's going to work. So what I'm going to do is go get some window packers from my van that I normally use for installing windows, and I'm going to stick it just a few under that little spot. These are little plastic window packers, and what I'm hoping to do is just chuck enough under there so that it closes this gap. It is uniform and it is much better than it was. And as a bonus, everything's tighter. There's a lot, all right, there are still some, but there's a lot less squeaks. So I'll put it back together, see how it looks. And actually, boys, if I'm honest, I am pretty happy with that. That is looking fantastic. Yes, the sides aren't perfect, but you know what? That looks great. Yeah, look at that. Much, much better. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is to pull off this steering wheel. So that just pulls off like that. Oh, sometimes you get lucky, not today. I've also just put a very minor mark on the lower steering column trim, if you can see that. That's just so that I can line the steering wheel back up when I get it back. So after trying a bunch of pulleys, I managed to just get it just by hitting it with my big carpenter fist. There we go. There's our wheel. Now I won't be putting this new wheel on in this video. I'm just going to send this off and get it redone. Okay, for the next thing, we're going to be going under the car, and I noticed that half of my Tailshaft bolts were either loose or missing. So I've actually gone and bought 6 new ones, and I've got some Loctite. Yes, they're not the Allen key headed bolts, but they are 8.8 rated. Okay, so we're under the VN now, and as you can see, I haven't actually touched these yet, but look how loose they are. I purposely got different colored bolts so that it would be easy to see. So there's our new one. I was saying Loctite, it's actually Rapid Stick. It's just what they had at the nuts and bolt shop, but it's pretty much the same thing. Interesting, it's actually purple. I've not seen that before. I don't even have to get a spanner to pull the old ones out. That's terrible. So what I've actually done here is just jack this wheel up so it's off the ground. That way I can spin this, and that will in turn spin the tail shaft. This works because this is an open diff, so the other one's on the ground. So if I spin this, it's going to spin the tail shaft. So now I've just got to spin that wheel so I get those other two at the bottom, like that. So I've just put the car back on the ground, so I've done that so that this no longer moves when I go to tighten this bolt. Now that that's done, the only other thing that I'm going to do in this video is give it a wash. From my time at Autobarn, this is my favourite, the Nanolicious wash. Now there's plenty of good brands out there, but this is the one. Now I'm pretty short on time. I can't get the VN actually out of the shed because the VT's in the way, so we're going to wash it right where it is on the concrete slab. But that's okay, we're not going to go too crazy with the water. I'm just going to give it a light bucket wash, but let's do it. Next thing I do is get one of these big microfibers, grab some Boss Gloss and spread it all over like that, and wipe over the car with this. Look at that. Hope you guys enjoyed the first episode of me fixing stuff on the VN. Now this is probably going to go on for a while. I don't know when the next part's going to be because I'm still going to work on the steering wheel, get that sorted. And if you guys have seen anything in the video which you think needs some attention, feel free to let me know. But I do have another little list of stuff I want to improve. So I really enjoy making these style of videos. So I'll be doing this kind of thing with all of my cars because the list of stuff to fix is enormous. I hope you enjoyed, and if this is your kind of content, then please feel free to subscribe and follow along with what I do here.